But I got, what's the thing today?
3, 2.
Hello friends, welcome back to Advanced Weekly Update. I'm John.
I'm Peter.
And today we're talking about touring museums. Now I know some of you are tourists or you have been international tourists, right?
Yes.
There are some great museums in some English-speaking countries. In the United States, there are a lot of great museums in your hometown, New York, right?
Oh yes, in fact sometimes I always felt like I didn't need to tour the rest of the world because I lived in New York City and the rest of the world was already there.
Now, when it comes to a museum, sometimes the rest of the world literally is there. If you think about the British Museum, it has this huge collection of artifacts from around the globe. Now, sometimes there's controversy about having the artifacts from other countries in your museum. We'll talk about that at the end, so don't go anywhere. Be sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to join, you can get access to all our advanced radio content, but let's start learning together today. Let's do it. First of all, our poll question. The poll question is, what is your favorite part of the museum experience, right? We all have an experience doing touristy things.
Sure.
So what do we have here?
Learning the history. You go to a museum, of course you learn about history. There'll be a painting or there'll be a spear or an ancient weapon of some sort, a little blurb telling you something about the history it comes from.
That's right.
Seeing the artifacts, actually seeing the things themselves, even if you don't learn anything about them.
Yes, an artifact is something that has been built by an artificer, or we call it an art. Artifice is making things.
Right. So an artifact, something that someone made. Enjoying the ambiance. This is a good one to have on the list because it is possible to go to a museum just to get away from the noise and bustle of the city. And just there are certain museums where you go and in front of some paintings, they'll have a bench.
Yeah.
They'll have a bench in front of a painting, meaning they think this painting is worth you just sitting down and looking at it.
In Los Angeles, there's a museum called the Getty Institute, or the Getty Museum. It's a collection by a man named J. Paul Getty, and the ambiance is the reason I like going there.
Yeah.
Finally, we have browsing the gift shop. Of course,
the gift shop.
I like that at zoos with my little kids. We like to go to the gift shop. Is that your favorite thing in a museum, though?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite thing, but it is one of my favorite things when I'm doing Christmas shopping or birthday shopping. The kind of friends you have, they always appreciate a little cultural or an artistic thing.
Yeah.
And a museum gift shop is the perfect place to go and look for that. Hopefully, it's a gift shop that you don't have to pay admission to get into in order to go to the gift shop. Yeah. Something like that. But
it's a great gift idea, actually. The
kind
kind of friends that drink their wine glass with the fingers.
Exactly, if you have those kinds of friends.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, as you notice today, I am wearing my Roman soldier helmet. It's of course not authentic. It's not a real artifact. It's just from
I don't think you got that from a museum.
No, don't tell the ancient Romans. Let's go to our discussion question, though. Think about this. What is your favorite museum? We've talked about the Getty Center, which is an art museum. What is your favorite New York museum? You can only pick one.
My favorite museum in all of New York City. New York has this stretch of road called Museum Mile because there are so many museums on it. I would have to say the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
The Met. That's the spiral one, right? You just walk up and up?
No, that's the Guggenheim.
The Guggenheim.
The Guggenheim, which is that building, maybe you've seen a picture of it. It is a spiral, and the spirals get bigger and bigger the higher it goes. It's a very odd-looking building. It houses, it stores modern art. And so they decided for modern art, let's have a modern looking building to show it. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, it has some modern art, but it also has art from all ages. And so the building itself almost looks like an ancient Greek temple or these days you might say a great train station. It has these big Greek columns and steps going up and banners hanging down, and it's huge. It looks like a British mansion or something.
Okay, a column, C-O-L-U-M-N, is a big pillar that holds up a building or for decorative purposes. Today, there are lots of great art museums. We're going to talk about history museums. Since if you're reading our magazine, our article today is about a new museum that's opening in Egypt, which is
the Grand Egyptian Museum.
The Grand Egyptian Museum, yes. It's been a huge process, and Egyptian artifacts are arguably some of the most prized, the most mysterious in the world. Let's get into some vocab for today. First of all, when we're talking about any museum, we're talking about a collection. Now, the term a collection can mean a bunch of really anything.
Right, a group, an arrangement that somebody or people have collected together. And we talk about the Picasso collection at the Museum of Modern Art, or the Egyptian collection at a museum that isn't in Egypt.
That's right.
And it just means, it's the focus of that particular arrangement or assortment of art or artifacts.
Correct. Now, in order to have a museum collection, someone needs to curate it. They are called the curator. And the curator for a museum collection is very important. They not only pick the artifacts, but they decide which pieces will be displayed. And they choose the right collections to be shown at the right time.
Right.
Typically, a museum will have multiple collections from various periods of history or showcasing different aspects of something.
Right, and the curator is the person in charge of all of that. Sounds a lot like another English word, cure, but it's not that the curator heals sick artifacts or paintings. It has nothing to do with that kind of curing. The curator in this case just means the person who organizes it.
Yes, there's a word procure, which means to get something. Oh, I procured this first century piece of pottery from the props room.
Yes.
Pure styrofoam.
That's real Egyptian ceramics.
Now, there are some terms for the people who come to see the collection. They are called the guests or the visitors, but there's another term, the patrons. Patron is a term that comes from history where people would actually pay an artist to be their private artist. Art throughout history has almost always been funded by patrons. Now it's much more of a commercial enterprise than ever before, I think.
Art exhibits and museums in general?
Well, I would say now artists can be sort of independent of a specific patron.
Oh, true, yes, compared to the way it used to be, definitely.
Right, where oftentimes the best artists would have a king that was funding their work.
Right, the way it is now, in fact, is that the king is the government, and the government will usually, partly at least, pay for the upkeep of museums and art galleries or something because they realize it's a good thing for the town to have or for the society to have. And so it's no longer just about Bill Gates funding a museum or Warren Buffett or some single individual.
Right. So we call those grants from the government, G-R-A-N-T. There are different kinds of museums. There are private collections. One very wealthy person that we just mentioned, J. Paul Getty, Mr. Getty, I forget his exact first name, but Mr. Getty collected a lot of art throughout his life. There are also other kinds of institutes, like a national endowment for the arts or a local city institution.
Yeah, institute's an interesting word. It's very similar to institution. And I mean, basically, they're almost the same word. An institution in usage is usually it has a broader meaning. An institution could be a mental institution, it could be an educational institution, a governmental institution, whereas an institute is a bit more specific to the arts usually or to
building,
culture.
An institute is often the place itself, so it's kind of more specific. And then if you say I'm instituting something, it means I'm implementing or I'm starting it, basically.
I'm making it an institution. I'm making it a regular part of a society of some sort.
I instituted a law, no shoes on the porch, or something like that. Okay, we have some more vocabulary when you're studying history here. Get ready. First, the word era, E-R-A. An era is a span of time. So you could say in the medieval era or in the Ming Dynasty era. There are just different eras throughout history, and they can be defined in almost any way.
Right, good little word, era, and like he said, just means a period in history.
Yeah, and I think Taylor Swift just had her eras tour,
the
period of her life.
Periods in the history of Taylor Swift is what the thinking is there.
Ancient history. We also have the term archaeologist, archaeology, someone that studies ancient things, right? Yeah, and so you have that word archaeology there.
Who's your favorite archaeologist?
I don't know any archaeologists off the top of my head.
Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, there you go. Dun, 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 dun. That's right. Well, I have another term here. What do archaeologists often study? If they're studying human beings, they often study civilizations. Civitas is the word for city. So civilization, when people started living in cities and having a group identity.
Yeah, organized societies, human civilization. It means not just humans alive, but living together in communities.
That's right. So we have, of course, an article on ancient Egyptian history. It would not be complete without teaching you this word, mummy. You probably know that word already. If a baby yells for their mummy, like a little British baby says, my mummy.
Yes, yes.
It means mom. But mummy here is a totally different word.
Right, mummy here is an Egyptian thing, maybe you've heard of it, what they used to do with dead bodies in Egypt. They would wrap them up in a special paper to preserve the body as a means of respect, of showing honor to the person who had died. And what Hollywood, of course, in the 20th century picked up on that as a great idea for a monster movie about these mummies that come back to life and they're walking around, you know, sort of stalking their victims, still all wrapped up in paper and everything. But,
the mummy.
The
That's right.
mummy,
yeah. Mummies, the key to a mummy is you are preserving a body. And so there are different mummies from around the world. In Peru, there are a lot of mummies because of the dry climate. If something lasts for a long time, if it lasts, we say that it is well preserved, or it's just preserved. Preserved means kept, right?
Yes,
kept in some condition. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a few Egyptian terms here: pyramid, Sphinx, and hieroglyphics. Okay, go.
Goodness,
what is a pyramid?
Egyptian.
We need to know what a pyramid is.
Well, pyramid, those big triangles, those big triangular buildings that we always see whenever somebody shows us a picture of Egypt. You almost always see a pyramid, and they're still standing today. These remarkable triangular structures, basically just enormous tombs, right?
Yeah,
for
basically.
For mummies.
Yeah.
You know,
probably not built by aliens. Sorry, internet. So the pyramids were who knows? But
I think we can say with confidence.
Then the Sphinx is one of the other pieces of architecture that's very distinctive. The Sphinx is a statue of kind of a lion with a woman's face, basically.
Yeah.
There's a type of cat. I was looking on the internet called the Sphinx cat. This cat has no hair. It's got huge ears. It's actually kind of cute if you like weird cats. But if any of you have a Sphinx cat, send us a picture.
And do you know the riddle of the Sphinx?
I do. They're in the famous story of the man Oedipus. He's asked and solves the riddle of the Sphinx.
The riddle is, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the afternoon or the evening?
What is it?
4 legs in the morning.
A 4-legged dog that's losing legs?
2 legs at noon, 3 legs in the evening. It is man.
Man. The Sphinx basically says that people crawl on all 4s, then walk on 2 feet, and then finally, with a cane, they have 3 legs at the end. That is the famous riddle of the Sphinx. Trick your friends. The Sphinx would kill people who couldn't answer that correctly. B, preserving a human body. Correct. There are other kinds of mummified creatures that they have found. Mummified crocodiles, I believe baboons, and other things. So
really, mummified crocodiles?
I believe so.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So how's that for the next
Now that would be
horror
a
movie?
monster. You know, a mummy that's also a crocodile.
Well, friends, okay, last but not least, I'll share some of my favorite museums. Growing up as a kid, there are different kinds of museums. If you're ever in Chicago, there's a great history museum, but there's also a museum called the Museum of Science and Industry, a different kind of museum. We're not talking about ancient history here anymore.
That's in Chicago?
In Chicago. And it had all kinds of exhibits that were interactive.
Oh, neat.
Like a science museum is pretty fun.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear what kind of museums you all like. Just let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
All right, friends, that's all our time for today. We appreciate you. Keep practicing your English. Those vocabulary words are helpful as you're traveling to talk with your international friends.
Yes. Go visit a museum, too.
Yeah. Go do that. Evangeline, hi. Your motivation to visit the History Museum is to learn the history outside of the books. But what is the most exciting thing is to browse the gift shop and buy souvenirs, then regret it after 3 months. Yeah. But maybe Peter had the right idea. Maybe you could then give them as a gift. And if they're old, it doesn't matter because they're from a history museum, right? You can say, oh, I got this 5 years ago. It's better than ever.
It's brilliant. It's,
There.
you can't miss.
Thanks
Do
for
your
sharing.
shopping at the gift shop.
Well, friends, we appreciate you. God bless. We'll see you next time on Advanced Weekly Update.
Take care.